What is up? Kevin Hale here on this Sunday night, March 2nd, 2025. It is round of shots, talking a lot of blue, talking maybe whatever else we want to talk about. Doing it tonight. Look, we got Doc is in the house, Coach, Davo, TB, and Buzz, hopefully to join us soon. Doc, good to see you. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's hard to believe it's March already. March Madness is here. Can you believe it? Where did January go? Where did February go? I can't wait for March.
It is, man. Already two full months into the year, and the madness is upon us. Davo, how are you? Good to see you.
Oh, I'm doing well. Yep, it's time to get started now. It's time to get serious. Here we go.
Party, it's party time. Coach Sisk, Dave, how are you, man?
I'm good. I'm March for that reason, but for another, and I'll start in December and just start checking out day off days, look like I'm in prison. The time I get. But mine's, man, getting outside. Not, man, I'm just an avid golfer, so I can't wait to get outside and do that. So when you've got that and basketball both going on the postseason, man, it's just I'm just ready to get out of the house.
Yeah, it is healthy to get out and touch some green, look at a blue sky, and breathe in some air and interact with people if you can. Definitely spend time with your family and all that good stuff. Streaming live on my Facebook, YouTube, X channels, pages. Again, thanks for hanging with us. It's a lot of Kentucky talk. With this show tonight. I don't even know if I got anything non-Kentucky. Maybe. I don't know. But anyways, Doc, turn to you. The ladies, Kentucky women's hoops, wrapped up their regular season today on the road at South Carolina. A very good effort. Tell us about today, and then go on and give us your high-level summation of the season.
I don't know how high level it is, but I have been following him throughout the whole year. Today in Columbia, Colonial Life Arena, that is a very, very difficult place to play. It's probably the most difficult place for women in the SEC. They've got a great fan following. They understand their basketball. Of course, Dawn Staley has been there forever and has built up this program. So for Kentucky to go in there and essentially hold their own, that game was tied. I think it was a one possession game with going into the fourth quarter. And they showed that they belong on that big stage. I was a little concerned finishing up the year with Texas, with Tennessee, with South Carolina, with LSU. That's a big, big challenge for anybody. And for Kentucky to go through that gauntlet was pretty impressive. I think Kenny Brooks probably said it best in his post-game analysis. He says that the SEC is certainly the best conference in the country. The conference is stacked. Everybody says it's stacked, but he also realizes that Kentucky is part of the stack, that not only does Kentucky have to go through these other difficult teams to win it all, but other teams have to now go through Kentucky also. And I think that speaks volumes. Season overall, huge, huge success. He cobbled together a team, didn't really know what was going to happen with this year. I lost two key players at the very beginning of the season, players who were supposed to be a big, big part of the rotation, probably starters. So from day one, he's been working against this depth issue. And I've always said there have been two big concerns about this team. One is the physicality. The second is the depth. They go hand in hand, and I think that kind of showed today. South Carolina just kept shuffling in players 5 at a time. Kentucky played 5 probably almost throughout the entire game, and that kind of hurt them. You saw them run out of gas down the stretch.
You touched on the gauntlet that they had as the season wrapped up. It was really, arguably, Coach, if I bring you in, if you want to jump in, the gauntlet of their schedule, really the meat, the main event teams. Mentally, physically, win or lose, that has to benefit them. Confidence heading into next week's tournament.
Yeah, and I don't keep up with that side of it, and I'm not going to pretend I do as much as maybe some of you guys do, especially as Doc does. But I know Thursday night when I saw the early score, Kentucky and Tennessee, living in Tennessee as I do, it's the Lady Vols, and they have their own niche, in a state it's comparable with any sport, and to see them jump up on them the way they did, I'm like, whoa, just right off the bat, and then you play South Carolina, it's just going to toughen you up. And there's so many of those teams in the league, So I look at the standings today going into the tournament, and I see Kentucky's in the top 4 as a 4 seed in what's a absolutely loaded league. You have to take your hats off to them. And like you said, playing those type of teams night in and night out just helps you in the tournament, man. But when you could finish top 4 in the SEC and you're number 1, I think you're taking a big step to show what your program is going to be about.
Dave-O, what you say?
Yeah, just kind of replay, on what these two said. I mean, the season was fantastic, right? I mean, the last 3 was a gauntlet. LSU, Tennessee, and South Carolina. I said that all along we had to get one of those 3, and luckily we beat the crap out of the people in Orange. We know how I feel about those. And honestly, we should have. We had LSU. We had them on the ropes, and we took South Carolina in Columbia to 1 point in like the final 4 minutes, right? So all that is super impressive. To even get a top 4 seed in Kenny's first year is amazing, right? So we just have to just keep on letting this go, just like the men, and just enjoy this run, because we have a superstar that at any time, we're going to lose. So we just need to keep enjoying it. So,
Terry Brown, glad to see you. Maybe you can enjoy what we got cooking tonight.
Apologies, took me a little while to get locked in here. I apologize, guys.
It's good to see you again, TB.
I tried to get them to stop until you got on here, and they wouldn't do it. So,
Terry, talk to us, Kentucky women.
Hey, it's fantastic, right? Like, this is what the women's team should be, is competing not at the same level as the men, but competing year in, year out, right? Like, they should be the top part of the SEC. They should be a top 15 team. So it's exciting. It really is exciting to watch them do that. I know they fell a little bit short today, but this is where the program should be, to be honest with you.
We, Doc, going back to you, this Coach Brooks, what clearly he had the pedigree, he had everything, the hype coming into the season, and safe to say he exceeded every expectation handed to him, expected of him. Hello.
I certainly think he did. It was he's frequently referred to this program as a sleeping giant, meaning that all the potential was there for them to take it to this next level where they're, like Terry said, going to be competitive year in and year out. But I think the reality is no matter where he went, and I think Kim Mulkey referred to this, wherever Kenny Brooks went, that program would be the sleeping giant, because the guy seems like he's that good. He's good with his players. He's good relationship-wise. He's good dealing with the media. He's good X's and O's. I'm very, very excited to see where this program does head in the next couple of years after he's got a chance to kind of build up this current recruiting class of players that he has, and to see how he's able to replace a transcendent player like Georgia Amore. I think he's going to be able to do it, but it's time will essentially tell. One quick thing. I understand that South Carolina and Texas tied for the league championship. They had a coin flip, and South Carolina actually won the coin flip. So they will be the number 1 seed, which unfortunately means if Kentucky makes it through the quarterfinal round on Friday, they will face the Gamecocks again on Saturday in the semifinals.
As they are the 4 seed.
Yes, they
So,
are.
which does give them a double bye.
They get the double bye.
All right,
Scared,
let me.
scared money don't make money.
True. Staying with the ladies real quick, Doc. You know, you mentioned Kim Mulkey, and she had a comment. Actually, it was your post on X that I'm kind of going with. She pleaded with the media not to take her question the wrong way, but why don't the women play in RUP? That was her quote. Question/quote.
She put a little bit of a John Calipari. I was actually asking her about how important it was for Kentucky, for the league, for Kentucky to be good. And my expectations were that she would just heap on the platitudes and say, of course, it's important. The program with all the tradition, they need to be good in order for the SEC to continue to generate interest and be good. But no, she flipped it and turned it in a completely different situation. It was obvious that she was hoping her team could play in Rupp Arena. And I think to actually play in Memorial Coliseum was a little bit of a disappointment to her. But the answer to her question has to be, well, will they ever be able to fill it? They've tried a couple of times, and for the big games, every once in a while, they've been able to get a large number of people. But to be able to fill Rupp Arena consistently with women's basketball, especially at this point in time, that's a little bit of fantasy land right now. I think the Coliseum generates a lot better environment. It's a lot more of a home court advantage. And it's a lot easier to fill 6,000 seats than it is 20,000 seats.
And you know, if you got a viewing audience out there, guys, anyway, jump on it with this one. It just looks better. You know, you're not, having 10,000 people on TV in Memorial Coliseum versus, or 6 to 10 in Memorial versus 6 to 10 in Rupp is a little.
Yeah, it takes about 12 or to 15,000 people to make the lower level of Rupp look.
There you go.
Look appealing. So I understand what Kim Mulkey is saying, but it's a pretty big jump from the confines of Memorial to Rupp. And I get what she's saying. You know, the women should play the same place as the men, but it's a big jump between 11,000, I think is the max of Memorial, to 20,000 that makes it seem like there are actual people there for Rupp. So a little bit of a difference. But I understand what she's saying.
Okay. Anything, Coach, finishing up our take on the ladies?
No, I would just say I watched Alabama and LSU late in the second half Thursday night and into overtime. And, I was in Coleman, which is not a big arena. And I was in Coleman last Saturday when Kentucky played Alabama. I can be there in 3 hours. So anyway, I'm watching the game, and you can see they can kind of hide it from courtside when you're looking across the court there on television. But then when they show the replays down on the baseline, and there's 5 people sitting in the base, right there on the floor, and there's empty seats, and they try to pack them in on the sides, and they didn't have anybody on the ends. And it's like you say, it just doesn't. It's not a good look. And you were talking about 2 teams right there. I think Alabama had lost 5 or 6 games all year. We know how good LSU's is. That was a top 15 matchup. It was a really good game, but there just wasn't a whole lot of people in there. And unfortunately, that's something you got to deal with. So I agree. I mean, you've got to make it presentable.
That's a good take. Davo, final thoughts?
Yeah, with the women's team, like I said, just hopefully there was not a whole lot of expectations on this, team as well as the men's program, right? But whatever expectations I'm sure there was got totally blew out the water. So, congratulations, and I'm super excited to see what the tournament brings. So.
Big week coming up for the ladies. Switch to the men's. We'll go back and look or talk about the Oklahoma game. The Doc, they went on the road. It was a homecoming of sorts for Oweh, and they pulled out what was a very interesting, crazy, exciting. All the feels food group had you captivated towards the end of that game.
That will forever be called the Otega Oweh game from here on in. What he scored like the last 18 points or whatever. The scary thing is that I think Kentucky now is only a last second Otega Oweh twisting miracle prayer made basket from being in full panic mode of DEFCON 1 at this particular point. It's amazing how just one victory can kind of change their entire perspective. There's still a lot of gloom and doom out there in Big Blue Nation after this Auburn game, but thankfully they were able to pull out that Oklahoma win.
Let's go, Dave-O. Go. Yes, the Oklahoma game.
Yeah, I mean, that game was certainly exciting. I didn't go in watching that game thinking it was going to take a circus shot to win the game by any means, but hey, that's just a Big Blue Nation when we play games on the road, right? Yeah, I mean, like Doc said, I mean, at this point, I know we're going to talk about the Auburn game, but at this point, we're just going to have to take everything in stride and just kind of see what happens. So, but yeah, that was certainly exciting. But it was really cool to see the national media, well, not national, an Oklahoma writer, didn't say a word about how Oweh pretty much got destroyed on his drive to the basket. But when Fears got blocked by 3 people, he was hollering for a foul. So whatever. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
We know, according to BBN, we get 0 calls every game and twice on Sunday, right? Yeah. Coach, what was your take on the Oklahoma game?
Well, if you went into the week, and you said, okay, Kentucky's either going to go 0-2 or they're going to go 2-0. Which one do you want? Well, I think we would all say 0-2 is probably a better choice, a more likely choice. And the game really came down, if you were betting on a game, whether you took just the winner outright and the money line or you took the points, the game went down to the final seconds, and it was what we thought the game was going to be. It was back and forth, and Kentucky's won some games like that, and they've lost some games like that. And Oweh, to do what he did, I thought it was the first game all year that I've seen a Kentucky player. And what do we say about Kentucky when you watch them is, they're a system team. They're not really made up of somebody who can just put the team on their back and say, here we go. Now, we've had guys get hot from 3, but not the players that say, hey, I'm going to get to the rim and you can't stop me. I'm just going to physically with the ball, I'm going to take over this game. That was the first time in that fourth quarter stretch or second half stretch, it would have been fourth quarter, last 10 minutes, that we saw a Kentucky player do that, which was Oweh. So, that is a big memory that I have, and it's weird enough. It come in really between maybe his 2 worst games. Alabama and Auburn, probably 2 of his worst games he's had all year, and then out of nowhere he does that one. But it was a win Kentucky needed, like you said. It wasn't a deal where you're like, man, I can't believe they played that game that close. That's how close it was supposed to be with a battered Kentucky team when you're beat to death. So it is what it is. Be happy to get those wins. And I have to be careful to kind of catch myself because I don't want to dumb down what the expectations are for Kentucky and what they should be. But I think a lot of times we see that a lot where they're saying, well, it's, be happy to win this game and get game. And I'm like, no, it's Kentucky. The standards should be different. But you still got to put it in perspective right now from where this team's at. So, yeah, that was a big-time win, a big-time performance from Otega Oweh.
Who's next? I don't know. Okay. I'm trying to produce and do stuff on the back end. Dave-O, Terry, who's next? Jump in.
I think it's me. But,
all right, go.
Oweh, this is what I love about basketball, is one person's influence can change a lot, right? Like baseball, your best batter comes up every now and then, right? Maybe 3 or 4 at-bats per game. But when it's basketball, it's like, give me the ball, I will figure it out. And for my money, Otega Oweh's Oklahoma game goes up there, maybe not as much as Tayshaun with the 5 3-pointers against North Carolina. Maybe not as much as Malik Monk against North Carolina, but that's the game. It's like, give me the ball. I will figure it out. Everybody get on my back, boys. That's what I love about basketball is one person can be like, all right, I got it. Let's get to it. And I didn't even realize he had those 18 straight until I think I saw it on Twitter where it's like, hey, Oweh's doing his thing. And I'm like, hey, he got his family in the stands. This is where he played before. Give him the ball, let him work. And he did. And I was very excited about that. Woke up my wife late at night when Oweh hit that shot.
Wait a minute, you're excited about that and woke up your wife late at night. Do we want to hear the rest of this story?
Yeah, I woke up because you know she's not a Kentucky fan by birth, but I'm working on her. Okay. But when Oweh hits that shot, and I'm like, oh my God, and then they come right back down with the block. I'm like, oh my God, and then Brandon Garrison gets his shot on, and the crowd starts throwing things at him. That's what Kentucky basketball is, right? I know we don't want to give Cal any props at all, but like, we come to your spot. We hear Go Big Blue, and we beat your team. That's what we've done for 70 years, right? Like Oklahoma, this is your first welcome to it, but this is what Kentucky does. You come in, you think you're going to win, it feels good, you've got a T-shirt night, but Kentucky ruins your good night. That's what we've been doing for 75 years.
All right, that takes care of Oklahoma. Let's shift gears to yesterday. Terry, we were the party poopers in Norman, but there was a group of Tigers that were party poopers in Lexington. Doc, the number one team in the nation came in, and they played like a number one team, and they kind of put us in our place. My take, but go ahead.
It was a little bit of a reality check, but if we're all honest with ourselves, we can't really be that surprised because what Pope has done this year a lot of it has been smoke and mirrors. He's beaten these teams that he's had no business beating. He's lost a few clunkers, but when you have a team like Auburn coming in, playing at the caliber of basketball that they're capable of on both ends of the court, I was impressed with them just as much on the defensive end as I was on the offensive end. But they've got a legitimate chance at a national championship. So it's going to be interesting to see if Bruce can go ahead and pull it off. Disappointed at the way the Cats played. I felt like that the game was set up to be much, much more competitive. But I think two stats really stand out to me. The fact that they only made 4 3-pointers and the fact they made 18 turnovers. You put those two together and Kentucky's not going to win any games with that.
Yeah, Davo, after the Oklahoma game, there was a lot of people that on social media that said Oweh's performance was one of the greatest performance ever in a Kentucky uniform. I don't get into the conversations online, but my thought was maybe a half, not per se the whole game. But what is somewhat alarming, Oweh did have that monster game, but he did nothing yesterday. And if you're going to be the guy, which we kind of need, I would like to see a guy be, someone be the one who will take over a game. We saw it Tuesday night. Or was it Wednesday, Tuesday, or whatever night. Yesterday, nothing from him. But it's Auburn. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you just have to credit Auburn's defense. They're so aggressive. They were switching everything constantly. We just couldn't get nothing going. They was, fighting us off the 3-point line. It was just it was a buzzsaw from the beginning. We just couldn't get comfortable, couldn't get anything going. Amari's usually really good about hitting cutters, to the basket, and they was, knocking all of those away. And then before you know it, one guy banks in, 2 3-pointers back to back. And, from there, you pretty much just kind of shook your head and basically thanked ABC for their generator catching on fire. So,
and not to the guy, I don't know, I can't remember who it was that hit both the banked.
It's Kelly,
three-
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, just to show that he meant to do it. He did it on the other side of the floor. Or, so anyways. Coach, your summary of yesterday's game.
Well, I don't know from this group who was there and who watched it on television, but if you watch it on TV as I did,
Fair. We did.
The thing that stuck out, and it was probably the foreshadowing before the game ever started, was Bruce Pearl's fire and brimstone speech in the locker room. And I mean, all he sounded like he was going to have a tent revival. All we needed was sawdust in the locker room floor, and we're set. But he comes out and he says, well, what's our record in the SEC? And he tells them, and he says, what's Kentucky's record? And he keeps screaming 8-7, 8-7, 8-7. And you go back to Denny Green's statement, we are who they thought they are, who we thought they were. And so if you go to Kentucky, I mean, you look in high major teams that they played this year, they are 11-10. And 8-8 in the SEC, and then 3-2 outside the league. Counting Gonzaga, Louisville, Ohio State, Duke, they're 3-2. So they're 11-10, which is not a great record. Now we've had the injuries on top of this. There've been a monster schedule. I mean, there's 21 tough games right there. So it kind of reminds me of the NFL. Colin Cowherd always says the NFL's built for everybody to go 500, and then you kind of play your way inside out. It's almost like the SEC is right now. But you throw the injuries in, and so there's no doubt right now Kentucky's that 500 team that's hoping they can get a wild card, whereas Auburn's the Chiefs, the Eagles, they're on that realm. And, I mean, when you think about it, you look at the half, and they're up 15, and the guy who is one of the two front runners for National Player of the Year, had 1 point or had even scored. I don't think maybe
Broom. Right.
Broom.
Yeah.
And man, those guards were just fantastic, and just on both ends. They just got different kind of dudes. And Pearl just lights the fire under them and lets them go. So it's and I know you have expectations, and while they're coming into Rupp, and maybe we feel an upset here, but when you really look at it, and I knew this early on, you're kind of hanging around, and I'd made the tweet before they even put them in. I said, okay, here's going to be the deal. Can you go into the bench? Can they hold up against these guys? Well, they couldn't. They're just you're playing guys that have no business right now, and you have to playing against Auburn. And that's not a knock for these guys, but Auburn's just such a different level. And it's like throwing blood in the water of a bunch of sharks when you go to the bench. And now they've got to stretch and are on. And once they get to filling it, it doesn't matter who you've got in the lineup. Now, I thought the bigs played really well. If you look at Kentucky's numbers on their bigs, you compare it to Auburn's numbers on their big, Kentucky outplayed them up front. They really did. But, man, Auburn was just so good on the perimeter. And as I forget who said it, I think it was Doc, you're turning points. Not only are you getting turnovers, you're generating them into points and fast breaks. So they're 4-point swings and are easy scores. So, right now you just hope you don't get an 8-9 if you get that far in the SEC, and you've got to turn around and play them all over again in Nashville.
Good point. TB, what you got for me?
Look, we all love Mark Pope, right? We're all on board. My thing is, how long does the honeymoon last? Okay. We know that Auburn is ahead of the game, and we played as well as we could that yesterday. Okay. I just remember last year, the last 2 years, it was been no excuses. This is Kentucky basketball. Like, we don't do it makes me feel good because we played good in this aspect of the game. That's what people told me last year. It doesn't matter, right? So at what point, and this is going to be the big year number 2, do we go from, we got some good wins, but we need to beat the teams we're supposed to beat?
Hold that thought. One of my topics is how, after yesterday's loss on social media, again, I'm gearing this strictly off social media, how divided BBN is with Coach Pope as of yesterday. But before we get to that, welcome in Mr. Buzz Baker. Buzz, did you get your belly full?
Boy, did I come in at the wrong time.
we'll pick that up in a moment. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you. Give us your take on yesterday's game.
I mean, what can you do? I mean, Auburn's been number one all year long. You don't have your second leading scorer. You don't have your other point guard. Kentucky probably did not respond as well as they had in other games this year. And that kind of stuff is going to happen. I maintain that, you know, if they were to be full strength, which they're not going to be, they could compete with anybody in the country. And if they're not, they're in trouble against certain matchups.
Fair. Okay, well, Terry, you brought it up. Let's let me go there. I'll kind of rearrange some of my talking points. But what? I'm sorry, Terry.
Well, I'm just saying. You know, I saw someone put out this is like the 5th year in a row we've had like a major contributor, you know, in the season injured, right? And I see that we're given a lot of grace for this particular team, which is fine. I'm all about grace, but I know that we don't usually give grace when it comes to Kentucky basketball, because all I've heard for the last 4 or 5 years is it doesn't matter, right? Who's playing, who's not playing. We're Kentucky. This is what we expect. So what I'm asking for is, okay, we go toward year 2 with Mark Pope. How does end of the year injuries play into effect? Or does it matter when we only like the coach? That's all I'm asking, because whatever the fans say I should feel, I'll feel. But is this year different than when we had other people that didn't finish the year or finish the year injured? How is this different? I need someone to help me with that.
Because there's a much smaller margin for error. I mean, they still made it to the Final Four when Derek Anderson got hurt. I mean, they were still playing well when Jared Vanderbilt got hurt.
Right.
When Nerlens Noel got hurt, it affected this team a lot more. I mean, you got this bunch of guys again that were put together in like 2 or 3 weeks.
I get it, Mr. Buzz Baker, and I love you and respect you, but I'm like, how much are we going to give this coach that we like than the other coach that we didn't like when they both had these things to cover?
It wasn't,
because I remember I'm old enough to remember when we're like, it doesn't matter. We're Kentucky basketball. We don't do excuses. We don't do what feels good. It's, did you put a banner in the rafters? I'm old enough to remember that, but now we got a coach that we kind of like, and we're given a little bit more leeway than other coaches that have had similar situations.
But at the same time, too, in fairness, it's this. This is, as this the banner says underneath us, his first season. So, but I get your point.
This other coach was not liked. This other coach who was getting $9 million a year sorely underperformed. Has nothing to do with like. I mean, let's just wait for the big Z to get eligible. Let's see if somebody at the Turkish embassy can get Ennis Cantor. I know that's not his name. Ennis World Peace or whatever the heck it is. Or there was always something like that.
Yeah, it was Cantor back then, but yeah, I got you.
Yeah, but I mean, there was always something like that. I mean, what this guy put together, and I'm telling you, you'd have to have somebody like our Ferris or some of our other guys who do stats and everything. But
Corey,
I mean, John, you would know this. I mean, haven't they won more single-digit outcome games this year than maybe they've won in the last couple of years?
And my response to that is, if so what? I don't think it addresses Terry's concern of why Pope is being treated to a different standard.
Well, again, I don't you think first-year coach there's a different. I mean,
listen.
I see what you all were saying.
Hale,
you're alluding to Cal, but
listen, you get 4 years to make a Final Four, because after Rupp, what did Joe B do? national championship game in year 3.
Fair.
What what did Eddie Sutton do, right? What did Rick Pitino do year 4? What did Tubby do year 1? What did Cal do year 2 or 3? Like, if we're gonna be Kentucky and we're gonna hold these standards, 4 years you've got to make a Final Four, because every coach has done it since Adolph Rupp.
It's
Okay,
completely different with the portal. It's completely different.
And that's something we have to factor.
Then explain to me how it's different, because every coach since then, within 4 years, has made a Final Four. If we're going to grade Pope differently, then let's just say our standards are different, whether or not we like the coach.
Oh
Okay,
my
but
gosh,
I'm
Dave,
okay. Hold
help
on,
me
hold
out.
on, guys.
Gosh,
I'm a
almighty.
little confused because again, you're referencing 3-4 years, multi years to get to the Mecca. 4 years to Final Four.
Back when players stayed for 4 years.
But we're talking. Let's stay in context here. I'm sorry. First season. It's his first season. Let's stay in the moment. So year 1, we've got potentially what we got 10 losses now. I think we probably go 1-1. We win 1, we lose probably at Missouri. You lose the SEC tournament, you lose the NCAA tournament. You're looking at a 13-loss season, which is striking a nerve with some of BBN. But in fairness, this SEC, we've never seen an SEC like this in my lifetime. Never. Terrence, I'm not bending the knee to Pope. It's year 1, and it did pull off a coup by assembling a team as he has, and how the season has played out. I can't hate on him, but he doesn't get an A grade from me for the season, and he's not a National Coach of the Year candidate. There's others. I'm not saying that, but in year 1 of this program for him, I think he's done very well. Coach, let me get your take. Give me something.
Well, I was doing a little math while this was going on, and so I do think I'm going to be this guy that I'm going to be this peacemaker that says everybody's right, but I do think the whole thing, just the way that I look at it, is Mark Pope's kind of tied to John Calipari, whether he wants to be or not, because John Calipari was abysmal the last 4 or 5 years. So Mark Pope comes into a situation where people are desperate. And I think the one difference is, even last year when Kentucky was with all that talent, we're supposed to be as good as what they were, and people were saying this is a Final Four team. And I said, I'll never say that with John Calipari, that it's a Final Four team. Words will never come out of my mouth. That maybe Sweet 16, and then we go from there. But I've heard all this stuff before from Calipari, and it fizzles out. And that's
your mind changed though with Cal towards his end of his run.
Yeah.
So
I'm talking about the second half.
Okay.
He was Les Miles.
Okay.
He was Les Miles. Okay.
Right.
So anyway, he the second half of his career, he was all about recruiting, and then it was just no offensive philosophy and stubbornness and all that. He was Les Miles 2.0. So you get that, and then here was the thing. I had no trust in Calipari. So I don't know a lot, but I knew not to trust him there toward the end. I don't know yet about Pope. Will he be the answer? Will he not be the answer? I don't know. But let's look at the last 5 years. So Pope's part of it. He's 20% of it. Okay. Calipari's 80%. Okay. So in the last 5 years, Kentucky has won 98 games overall. They've won 55 in SEC. Tennessee has won 121 games overall. They've won 60 in the SEC.
No.
Alabama has won 124 in the last 5 years. They've won 66 in the SEC. Auburn's won 114 in the last 5 years. They've won 66 in the SEC. Those teams have surpassed Kentucky quite a bit over the last 5 years. And to Terry's point, I think that's what shouldn't be accepted because, and it's not Pope's fault, but as a program in general, I call it the dumbing down of expectations, and that shouldn't happen. Where people say, well, that's okay. You know, yeah, boy, Brandon Garrison, he didn't take any crap at Oklahoma. He wanted to smoke. Yeah, in between 2 games where he never showed up. So those type of things to me, living in Tennessee, and in fact, I live about 25 miles from the Alabama line. So there's as many Alabama fans where I live as there are Tennessee fans. And I hear from both, and Auburn fans now too, where Kentucky's history, they're the old program where it's Auburn and Alabama now, it's Tennessee. Kentucky's not even a factor in all this. So, and when you go 2-8 in your last 10 postseason games, you can't get past Friday in SEC tournament. You can't get out of the first weekend. It's hard to defend it.
Fair.
So that's kind of what Pope is in. He didn't come into the glory days of Kentucky history. So it's not fair. I hope he can pull the cats out of it. So to me, that's kind of where things are right now. So he's got to take them kicking and screaming out of that into a better position.
Dave-O, speak. Oh.
Well, this has been lively.
I love it.
Yeah, me too. I just want to see my friends fight. Come on now.
No.
But in all honesty, you know, we hear the term like TV use honeymoon, right? What is a honeymoon by definition, right? It's generally 1 year of celebratory. Hey, we're all still getting along, right? This is going well. And I think we can all agree that all things considered, through all the injuries and all the uncertainties and all the types of players we have on this year's team, things have went fairly well. TB, I love you. I'm going to throw the Sharpie.
Hold on, TB. Hold on. Let Dave finish.
TB,
everybody go talk. I love this.
The honeymoon phase is essentially over because we are at the end of the regular season now, pretty much, right? So are you happy enough with this team is the question you need to be asking yourself. And you also need to be asking yourself, are you happy enough with this team of what you've had to see on the court, the product on the court? And are you putting hope in Pope to know that next year he's going to get his own guys and have time to recruit and see what happens, you know? So, you know, there is no excuses at Kentucky, right? There should never be any excuses. And to me, I don't really have excuses. But we just have to just keep hoping and seeing what happens, you know, next year.
Since Terry's got this figured out, tell me what he hasn't done.
You
keep asking everybody else questions. Come on, preach.
All I'm saying is, boo to who? If Rick Pitino can have 8 losses in his conference loss in his first year, what are we doing about 8 losses in the conference in Pope's first year? Because what I was told through social media, whatever, it was like, we are Kentucky, we have this standard.
Well, that's your problem for listening to social media.
But
first and foremost.
I listen to a
that's
lot of
on
people.
You.
Mr.
You
Baker.
wear that.
What I'm saying is, if we say we are Kentucky and this is our standard, then what are we doing?
Are we really comparing Pope's first season to Rick's first season?
All I'm saying is, if we are saying that we are making these, well, you know, he did this, he did that. Let me remind people of Calipari's first year. Number 1 in the country, number 1 seed. And we could talk about this is different, that's different, that's
different.
Did
they win it?
What I'm saying,
did they
you're
win it?
right, Dave Baker, they haven't, right? They didn't in Joby Hall's first year. They didn't in Eddie's. What I'm saying is, within 3 or 4 years, you got to sniff a Final Four.
All right.
So
we got a couple of years to go.
Are we not Kentucky? Are we not Kentucky basketball?
But wouldn't this then be, according to your standard, wouldn't this be a discussion to have in year 3 or 4 rather than before the completion of season 1?
You're right. All I'm saying is
that's right. Mark the tape. That's exactly what we wanted to hear.
We're making excuses in season 1 that we didn't make for previous coaches because
that's where you're
this
going.
is the Kentucky standard.
Okay.
This is the Kentucky standard, is what I've been told. Now, I was not born and raised in Kentucky basketball, so you got to bring me up to speed. But what people say is we don't accept. We're just competing in this game.
Here's Buzz, check this out, Buzz. Check this out.
Yep.
In fairness, how much, using what Terry just said, how much, because Pope is one of us. He's a national champion. He was a captain. Mm-hmm. He is Kentucky basketball through and through. Does he get a little bit of an extra?
He could, but I just don't think he needs it this year. Let's go ahead and look at facts. And this is where Doc comes in to help me, whether he agrees with me or not. First of all, you had a guy that told his athletics director he was staying. And then he turned around and he went out and negotiated with Chicken Man and left with all the recruits, which is exactly what he did at Memphis when he came here. We were the beneficiaries of it then, but we were the victims of it this time. So you go ahead and do that stuff. And how many times did we hear a post-game news conference over the last several? Well, I always take a timeout. I don't know why I didn't take a timeout there. Now you've got all these one-possession game wins, and you've still got an incredibly small roster. The difference between now and when the Unforgettables and everybody was there is the darn portal. And it's like Nick Saban said earlier this year on College Game Day. You can have $20 million for your NIL, but if you spend it on the wrong guys, you're out of luck. Mm-hmm. Okay? So that's the problem they're faced with in the portal right now. This isn't Dave Baker talking, okay? But I believe Danny Hurley has just been getting beaten by a dirty rug after he yelled at a crowd that he was the best in the game. I don't know if you saw it today or not.
Did he lose today?
That's right. That's right. But didn't Bill Self come out and basically issue a statement saying we're trying really hard and we're going to fight hard this week? And I mean, there are all kinds of guys that are under succeeding this year because they didn't hit it in the portal. Final two things. Patino the other day was asking an interview. Okay, Patino was asking in an interview, what would you do if a 5-star said he wanted to come to St. John's? He said, I wouldn't take him because you can't win with freshmen. That was the problem with Calipari. The entire college basketball world was getting older, and he continued to try and get younger and younger. And so the bottom line is this wouldn't even be a discussion if those 2 injuries hadn't happened. Does that mean they would have won every game? No, absolutely not. Did they win some games this year they had no business winning? Absolutely. Did they lose some they had no business losing? Absolutely. But I unless it's somebody on the internet who's using some avatar and sitting there in their tidy whities eating Cheetos by the handful, there's not a single Kentucky fan that doesn't believe this program is in a better place now than it was at this time last year.
Doc, I know Terry's got a rebuttal. All that. Let's go around. Doc, give me something.
What people might not understand is that Terry Brown asked a very, very legitimate question, and Buzz Baker, being the instigator, being the Mark Pope apologist on the UK radio network that we've all come to love and somewhat admire. What Pope himself has said, he understands the assignment. Win every game, win national championships. Now, to answer to Terry's question, I think he had a 1-year grace period regardless of what he does. He happens to do this next year, 10, 12 losses in the year. I think that's when the pitchforks and the knives are going to start coming out. They've already come out to this irrational part of the fan base anyway. There are people on social media who say, hey, Did we do the right thing in hiring this
So
guy?
by all means, let's give them some more oxygen. Let's give the irrational base more oxygen, please.
I'm ready to
Put it up on
snuff
high.
those out. Let's snuff those out right now at this particular point. But this time next year, if we've got double-digit losses, then I think you're going to see a lot more saber rattling right now.
I promise you, in a soon future episode of this show, when we don't have a lot to talk about, we're going to go. I'm going to pull up X, and we're just going to every BBN person we see, thumbs down, thumbs up, or all that. Well, great. Anyway,
And here's what I would challenge you to look at when you look at those. Look at the number of followers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I get it. And their name has about 11 numbers after the last
Big
letter.
Blue fan for life.
Yeah. See, I'm saying this is one of the reasons why I like doing this show. It's this banter. If we all agreed, if we all were wearing blue glasses, it wouldn't be fun. Just saying. So, but again, Terry, I think Terry's bringing up some points, but it's obviously we can't look at seasons 3 and 4 for
But
Pope.
all my point is, if that dude understands the assignment, we're giving.
Are you saying when you say if, are you saying that, or is that just a general?
I'm just saying, if we all accept that he understands the assignment, then he himself, Mark Pope, would understand that this year hasn't been quite what we thought it was going to be.
I don't see again. And
we've had high.
Let me ask you just a couple
we've
of
had
calm
people
questions.
not
Let me ask
finish
you a
the
couple of
season.
calm questions.
Hold on, Buzz.
Terry.
Hold on. Let me.
All right,
No,
all right, Mr. Baker. I respect you, Mr. Baker. Go ahead.
Let me table this, because in fairness, in April we did a show here. It was when it was the Sunday where Pope was introduced.
Yep.
I'll speak for me, and I'm pretty sure a few of you were on here said the same thing. I don't recall any of us thinking we were going to come close to sniffing an SEC title, SEC or NCAA championship. Not going to happen with what he had to do to build this roster. Didn't see it. No. So I don't. The expectation. I don't think him finishing with this now at the same time too. I don't think I'll speak. The SEC, I've said it. We've never seen an SEC like this. So there was talk that this was going to be one of the better years, but this league this year, my God, for them, for our team, for our Cats to be in the middle of what is the craziest, best SEC conference ever, to me, it's kind of meeting my expectations. But
okay, let me just ask you a couple questions, and I'm going to go on. I'm not going to talk about recruiting because he didn't have long enough.
Fair.
Do you feel that this team this year is prepared better game in and game out than they were last year?
Ooh.
Are you asking me, Mr. Baker?
Yes, sir.
He's asking the panel, but Terry, go first.
Absolutely. Like that play that went to Williams, I'm talking about against Oklahoma, that Oweh ended up like
A layup underneath.
in the layup.
Yes.
That's
That was
different.
beautiful.
I agree with you. The in-game, and I don't want to take away from Coach Sisk here, is the in-game, like, hey, we need a bucket. What do we do? That's worlds apart than what we had. I grant you that. Go ahead.
Sure. So they're better prepared.
Mm-hmm.
What Mark talks about in his scouting report, we have not heard that level of knowledge and intimate knowledge about what the other team is going to do in over a decade. It started back with the very first game when in that last timeout, he told those guys what Cooper Flagg from Duke was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
You have seen everybody. I don't think there is a single player on this team that has regressed. And I think you can make the case that everybody on this roster has gotten better. And then again, not me. But Bruce Pearl, who you rightfully touted as the guy who's got it going now, he's got a great team this year. He's always had tremendous respect for the Kentucky program. He, not me, said that Pope had the most innovative 5-out offense in the game. And that ain't me. That's a guy you're holding up. So, I mean, I get it. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I just don't know what somebody was expecting.
Yeah, Doc, you jump in.
Yeah, Buzz, I think it was interesting that Bruce Pearl, right after he lauded Pope's 5-out, also threw in the fact that Auburn also played a lot of 5-out. And because they did, they were able to defend them a lot better. It was a left-handed compliment, but a compliment nonetheless.
But there's no question he put together a roster that could score, and these guys could not guard this panel. I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but they could not guard this panel one-on-one. They'd shoot their way back into a bunch of stuff, though.
Yeah, that's unfortunate because there were probably about 2 or 3 games ago, there was a lot of talk about the defensive improvement of this team. Unfortunately, it looks like they've regressed the last couple of games.
And that may be true, but you also have to give a lot of credit to the competition they're playing.
Okay. Davo, I haven't heard from you.
Come on, Davo.
Come on, Davo.
So what do you want me to rebuttal on? What statement?
What you're feeling at the moment based on what you just heard.
Out there, Davo. We love you.
Well, I love you guys too. Come on. It's all love. So I said it in the past. Hell, I said it in the show whenever Pope got introduced, right? That I wasn't, super sold until I heard his heart and passion in that press conference, right? And I secretly said to myself, and then I put that on Twitter, which was a mistake because I got my head ripped off, that I seen this team finishing 18-13 and going to the NIT. And thankfully, so far, I have 8 pro, right? And we have surpassed my expectations. So at the end of the day, without wasting too much more of my breath, I'm happy.
Well, I think you're going to get the 13 loss right.
Okay.
I do. Not an NIT.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
You did not have them sniffing titles this year.
No. And I know TV's maybe thinking, well, this is UK. And it is UK, right? But this is the only year where this pass is going to be allowed, at least by me and hopefully the rest of the BBN. Am I frustrated as a fan? Absolutely, right? Am I irritated as a fan? Absolutely.
What is the irritation, though? But what's the irritation?
So the irritation is just being a fan in general and seeing what we've seen this year, right? I mean, just the way that we've lost some of the games to teams that we shouldn't have lost to and how we've lost to them.
Okay.
And irritating losing a big hyped-up game when John Calipari comes back to rut. We all know we should have won that game. But of course, we couldn't have got the freaking Arkansas team to score 12 points against South Carolina at halftime, right? So as a fan, myself, part of Big Blue Nation, it pisses me off when we lose. But in a perspective from somebody who's seeing what I'm seeing, I'm just going to wait until next year before I go get my torch and my pitchfork and call my realtor to go check on Coach Pope's house. Kidding. But I'm just saying. That is my perspective.
Oh, this is so
let me just say one thing, and this is from my talk radio experience.
Okay.
The best shows you hear post game, and that's the only thing I've never done in my life is a post game show. I've done shows the day after because before betting was legal, people were betting or they were drunk and they were mad or everything, and I get that. That's their right. But I wasn't going to get on there and talk to them. But people are eminently more affected by what they seem to or what they see as a bad loss than a great win. You still got, 7 or 8 wins over top 15 teams, which is the most they've had in a season in forever.
And some of them really short-handed.
And not just you, Davo, but a lot of people are that stat is overshadowed by the fact that they lost some games they had no business losing to, and especially Arkansas. The last thing I'll say, this is not an excuse, Doc, even though you like to call me the apologist. I wear that well. They've had their full roster for 7 games. and still put together this record in the league that everybody says is the best it's ever been. And it was, who was it? It was Nate Oates in his pre-Kentucky news conference that talked about their Alabama wins, or their non-conference wins, Kentucky's, lifted everybody else up in the conference in terms of the national conversation.
Yeah, does anybody else hear violin music in the background? Whenever Dave Baker starts talking, cue the violin music. It's coming.
Oh, MG. The guy with his hand up in the back row, please speak.
I get it, right? Like, look, I'm a realistic fan, right? When Kentucky loses, I'm like, oh, that stuck, that stinks, but I go and I do my business. All I'm saying is, when did this nuance come into Kentucky basketball? When did this, well, you have to understand, he got a late start and we got these, when did this happen? I've been a Kentucky fan for 30 years. I've never seen this grace extended to anybody. All I'm asking for is somebody tell me when it became in vogue to take the whole picture into account. Right? Like, somebody tell me.
When was the last time? When was the last time the previous guy won one? It was 2012. Their kids weren't alive.
Right. And the guy before him didn't win. The guy before him only won one. The guy before him got booted out. The guy before him only won one. The guy before him got put out when he was 70 years old. I get all that.
That's what you're saying. You're answering your own question. It's more difficult than the 3 or 4 year thing.
Okay. I mean, look, hey, write this down. Let 2029 come and Coach Pope hasn't taken this team to the Final Four.
Okay.
Because we have, what I'm saying is, yes, is the portal a thing, transfers a thing. Kentucky basketball has eaten at every iteration of college basketball. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Before Negroes could play, when Negroes could play, when we had the 3-point shot, when we had guys staying 4 or 5 years, when we had one and dones, Kentucky basketball has eaten at every iteration. And so now all of a sudden we're supposed to be like, well, you know, the world's changed. Really?
No, nobody's saying that. You said that. This is just
I'm saying it with you, Mr. Baker.
If you want to talk about eating.
I'm just like, Kentucky basketball is eaten at every iteration of Kentucky basketball. There's only one program that's been the top 10 wins since the 1930s. That's Kentucky basketball. That's because this is what we do.
Dave
we get to the point where we're like, hey, I like this person.
Let's this is Little Baker.
Oh boy.
Dave's son. What was it? The other we were doing a show and I'm sharing this and Buzz didn't know what was, but anyway.
I don't have my readers on.
All right, I'm gonna read stuff at the bottom. Because I think Kentucky fans are angry with the past couple of years and are taking it out on this year's team, and it's unfair to Pope for people to do that. And he adds, I think we need to stop listening to people who haven't touched a basketball in their life, that they're on the internet, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
That indicates he'll be texting me asking me for money before this show's over.
Okay. It is time to put Richie in, right? Put Richie in.
I saw Richie on Saturday.
All the players were there. What was,
88 players were there for what they called Alumni Weekend. It's a great job by the university getting all those guys back and everything, and they were there from every generation, and every one of them said that they had appreciated so much the way that Pope had made them feel welcome and kind of back in the whole deal. So from a nostalgic standpoint, it's great to see.
You know, we've touched on something too. We know the fan base, BBN, when it came to Cal, their disdain, there was a lot of their disdain for the one and dones. But let me remind everyone, this NIL era, it's one and done. It's just on the other end now.
You're getting them on the back end.
Yeah, it's a 1 year, basically a 1 year deal, and you know the guys will go to whoever's the highest bidder, or whatever. But anyways, that's digressing here.
Then if you don't like it, then take the banners down.
What?
That's what I've always said. If you don't like it, take them down.
Wait a minute.
If you don't like the one and dones, take the banners down.
No, I'm sorry. That's take the banner down. not
Well,
banners.
I think he's saying Final Fours too, right? Because how many Cal did what? 4?
4 of the 17 Cal put up there, and if you don't like them, take them down.
And what did he
I've
say?
been
They
a
didn't bring
proponent
me
of
here
that.
to win SEC championships. They brought me here to win national championships.
And-
Not
and-
what I
and-
said, what he said.
Right, and
Yeah,
Final
that was-
Fours are better. The only things we put up in RUP, and if those aren't good enough, then take them down.
But he
I
said
agree.
they
with you,
didn't
Mr.
matter.
Nick. I agree with them. Don't put up the Final Four banners. If you only want the 8 banners up there, that's all you put up there. I agree with that.
Maria says somebody bumped the jukebox. It keeps skipping.
I like that.
Okay. All right. Coach, you're a man of reason. You have numbered, you're an analyst. Do you have it? Based on what you've heard tonight, summarize this for me.
I am absolutely going to cut the legs out of everything you said right there. And that is, I want the crazy. We call it a crazies in Big Blue Nation. I want it to drink about 8 Red Bulls before every game. Get charged up as much as you can. That's what makes Kentucky basketball what it is, because people care. Kentucky fans care about basketball. There's only a few places. Nate Oates said as much in his post-game press conference after the game when he said, it's something I love coming here where people actually care about basketball. And I think that may have been a stab in the back that he can't get an arena built at Alabama. I think that, and I don't know that. But when he said, Bruce Pearl talked about it yesterday, I remember, and Dave, you know this guy, George Plaster.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I remember back in the 90s, and I remember this 30 years ago. It was 1996. He was on the radio, and he said, you know the things that I can't stand about Kentucky? And Kentucky, he's a Vanderbilt guy. He said they think it's their birthright to win the national championship every year. So his next caller called in, and he said, I am a Kentucky fan, and it is my birthright to win the national championship every year.
Yeah, we
And I'll
don't
never
think
forget
it.
that.
It
But
is.
To me, that passion is what makes Kentucky basketball. You take that out, you've got Ole Miss, you've got Georgia, you've got LSU, you've got Texas A&M. That's what you've got. The passion and the standards that people want to win. In most places, it's football. In Kentucky, it's basketball. Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, North Carolina, Indiana, there's not many. And where it really, really means something. So I would say this to the fan base, don't cut it back at all. Don't curtail it at all. Pour gas on it. You know, the expectations, everything that comes with it, that's what makes Kentucky different. When I coached AAU, we were in Las Vegas, and we were playing in a tournament, and a lady asked me, I had on a Kentucky Wildcats t-shirt, and the lady asked me, she said, you coach the Tennessee Travelers, you're from Tennessee, why do you have a Kentucky shirt on? And I said, I'm from the South, obviously. Kentucky, to me, when I think basketball in the South, I think about Kentucky. I pulled for Kentucky because Kentucky was the place where it meant something. It didn't mean anything in Tennessee. It didn't mean anything in Alabama. It didn't mean anything these other places. Basketball was something you did on the back end of spring football practice. So basketball in Kentucky, it means something. It should mean something. And I don't think people need to back off on their fervor for it or their expectations for it.
The passion here is 365 days a year, 366 leap year. It's crazy. It's insane. It's nuts. It makes for good conversation. Good, you know.
There's not another state in the Southeast right now where there's 6 people doing a podcast talking about this. They're talking about who's going to be the quarterback next year. There's not another place. So, and people want to hear this, and they'll have their own opinions. Nobody will watch this and not have an opinion about it.
That's fair.
Whether they agree with me or agree with anybody here, they agree with Terry, they agree with Dave, they don't agree with them. That's great. That's what makes it great.
Absolutely.
But there's being passionate, which give me all the smoke, right? Give me all the passion in the world. Was being passionate, and there's talking stupid, right?
Thank you.
Huge difference. Please be passionate. Please cheer. But for God's sakes, lower expectations when it needs to be lower. But cheer for your expectations that you want to see, right?
And not just stupid, but this. Here's the other thing too. And one of my talking points. I'm going to try to curb some of this down so we can get out of here. Social media. It's borderline disgusting anymore when it comes to teams, your fan base after a loss. You got people online, going at players. You mentioned some of them brought up Bill Self, and he had to go and put out this thing because some of the races. It's fucking ugly. And here's the thing: I don't care if it's our fan base or any fan base. Take one hand off the keyboard and take the other one out of your whatever. Get out of your parents' basement. Go to that player you want to go at. Say that shit to his face. No one. It's a bitch move to go on social media and attack players and families. And I've seen it some with our base a little bit going at players or the coach or his fam. That's where.
Here's the other thing in this day of AI and everything. We used to deal with this in the early days of talk radio. Some dude could call up and say that he was Bob from Versailles, and it's some guy named Ken from Richmond who's the fan of somebody else. And there are all these trolls out there. Mm-hmm. And the people that are unhappy that are out there on social media right now, I'm sure many of them are legit, but I would not be surprised at all if many of them weren't people that wouldn't pour a bucket of water on Kentucky if it was on fire.
I get it. We're in a lot of fan bases that circle. We're public enemy number one. A lot of it is just because we are at the top of the mountain. A little bit of jealousy and envy, but in this day and age too, someone alluded to it, and I'm going to just say the name on the front of the jersey doesn't intimidate schools anymore. We're past that. So we can't rely on the hype. We got to put a product out there. I guess maybe to Terry's point, in a few more years, what is the expectation going to grow? I think Coach Pope, there's a little bit of a curve with his grading because of what he stepped into. But that expectation, I think in fairness, has to increase each year until year 3, 4. He's got to get us to a Final Four or 4 to a title. Doc, I haven't heard from you.
1 year grace period. I think that's the bottom line. Even Billy Gillespie had 1 year grace period.
Billy. Wow.
And that's fine.
Thing I've heard in quite some time. To just be having this discussion and to bring up Billy Gillespie, for God's sake.
We heard it here.
Just
if you want to have a grace period
machine or something,
that's fine. But just say we're having a grace period, and next year Kentucky is Kentucky, because that's what I've heard from a lot of people. I've heard a lot of people talk about those Final Four banners are participation trophies. Okay, great. If we're championship or bust, put the 8 up there, take the others down, right? If we're going to denigrate what those teams have done. But if we're just championship or bust, then let's be championship or bust. Let's not bring nuance to it. That's all I'm saying. Okay. I'm hearing a lot of nuance this year that we didn't hear for the previous 30 years I've been a Kentucky basketball fan.
Tommy, I think first time I'm seeing him. Tommy, welcome. Thanks for hanging. Pope had to completely build a team late. He had a true freshman commit that stayed. He had a true freshman commit that stayed committed. That was it. I thought that if got this team to the dance, that we would have a successful season. His offense has been displayed on the big stage now. Recruiting will improve. Yeah, I mean, he's got a couple of 5-star guys, right? At least 1, 2 next year.
Coming in.
Okay, whatever. But a grace or maybe the expectations. I do think it's fair that anyone who thought that we were going to be smelling a Final Four that's totally unrealistic. And then just the fact that this SEC again, for him to do what he's done, he's had some great wins, some head scratching losses, but again, I think as a season, it's been a success. But we got 2 more games to go. We got an SEC tournament to go. We got the NCAA tournament.
I think all these injuries are Billy Gillespie's fault.
Somebody's fault.
Well, I mean,
there you go, Mr. Beck.
Billy Gillespie. It's got to take back to Billy Gillespie.
Who chased him?
Kevin,
who was it again?
Cutler.
Was that who's that?
It was Cutler.
Cutler. Such a great.
Hey, guys, I think to me, the gauge on success this year, I want to say 2 things. The gauge on success this year are going to be if they get out of the first weekend. And maybe it's not my spot to grade. Okay, I'm not the end all be all, but I think if he gets out of the first weekend, he's going to do something that John Calipari hasn't done since 2019. And I think if he can, I think we can all look at it and say, okay, that's an improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's something that they've not been able to do. And I think if you don't get out of it, you're not passing judgment, but that's what I'm saying. You're just not sure. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. And I tend to think he will. If I had to go either way, I tend to think that he will. But I'm looking more at, I think, like I said, 80% of this, 90% of this is on Calipari, or even more than that. I think I'm looking at right now, just as somebody listens to Tennessee fans and Alabama fans and all those people all the time, maybe just different perspective, but it's just, I'm looking at the overall state of the program right now, and Mark Pope can't help that. He came into this, he's got something that John Calipari left him, but I don't think there's any of the 6 or anybody listening out there and this has nothing to do with Pope, that can say, yes, as a Kentucky fan, I'm happy of where the state of the program has been and where it is right now. I think no matter who, I don't care if it's Danny Hurley, I don't care if it's Steve Kerr, I don't care if they bring Red R back out of the grave and prop him up on the bench. It's not, it doesn't matter. There's that standard there that Kentucky should have. And I don't care who the coach is on down the road. I'm not saying Mark Pope needs to do it this year, but I don't care who the coach is. You know what the standard is, Kentucky, and they've got to get there. You know, I look at and I don't mean to make a bad comparison here, compare apples and oranges, because this guy, if you compare what Tubby Smith came into and what he had and what Mark Pope has coming, it's totally different. Tubby inherited a national championship team and won a national championship in his first year. But by year 4, they're calling him 10-loss Tubby. And then in year 5, he goes to, or year 6, rather, he goes to an Elite 8, and it's still not good enough, man. They were on him. Year 8, he goes to an Elite 8 again in his 8th season. They were on him. They wanted him gone by that time. And it was just, there were so much expectations that probably weren't reasonable. And here's why I'm saying that may be a bad thing, because I've asked for passion, and it may not be. But to me, that's what Kentucky is. It's important. Where a lot of places you have a season, you say, we got to the NCAA tournament, let's have a parade. That's just not good enough here. And I'm not making any mention of Mark Pope. This has nothing to do with Mark Pope. This is where I'm just saying it probably is a tougher time now with portal, as Dave's been saying. But this is Kentucky, and the expectations do not need to be skimmed down. Okay? It's Kentucky, and you know what they are. So eventually down the road, that needs to get back to that, or no matter who the coach is, they're going to hear about it.
All right. Okay, guys, let's see what we got. Jaxson Robinson career officially ended. Doc was announced last night or by Coach Pope.
Yeah, he officially announced it during his post-game presser, and it really was a little bit of a downer. Once again, it shouldn't be something that we should be completely surprised at, because as all of us know, over the past 3 or 4 games, it's been, well, he or won't he. First opinions, second opinions, third opinions, and then ultimately Pope gave a medical explanation about it being a sheath that really wouldn't be able to be healed except through surgery, and that was the best way to go with that. Feel terrible for Robinson. Last year, I know he wanted to play, but ultimately, the good news is that it's going to be supposedly 100% successful, as much as surgery can be 100% successful. Mm-hmm. I wish him the best. Kentucky's going to miss him, but there is a sense of finality knowing now that he's not going to be available. They can go ahead and move on and plan accordingly.
Yeah. Anything anybody else want to add about J-Rob?
I don't know what your plan B is with him out, because, and I'll give Davis kudos here to kind of back what he's saying with the injuries this year. It makes a big difference when you've got one shooter on the floor compared to 2. When you got Robinson and Bray on the floor, man, they really stretch the defense, and then all that opens up. So now teams are they're in Bray's shorts, but they don't have to worry about the other guys shooting the ball. They can't spread you out big enough, now with that happening. So they're easier to guard. So I do believe that. I think Robinson being out impacts this team negatively more than a lot of people realize. I think that's a key injury.
Concur. Anybody else? Or no? Okay. I got to ask this question. The Oweh shot that wasn't last second, but that turned out to be the game-winning shot against Oklahoma. People put that up there in the Kentucky lore of one of the greatest clutch shots ever. Real quick around the circle. Who, Doc?
There should not even be an argument against this one. It's Aaron Harrison and his 3 shots. Michigan, Wisconsin, Louisville in that 2014 run up to the NCAA title. I know I usually associate big shots with winning the title itself, but I think in my history as a Kentucky fan, basketball fan over the past 50 years, that 3-game stretch was probably the most excited I've ever been. And it was because of that clutch shooting by Aaron Harrison. Hands down, no other people need apply.
So I don't need to go around the table. All right, everybody, you just heard it. Davo, what's your favorite, best clutch shot moment?
I think one of the funnest clutch shot moments I remember was Patrick Sparks down in Austin. I believe it was against Michigan State in like the Elite 8. That kind of off balance, top of the key.
How many times did it hit the rim?
It hit the backboard. It hit the back rim, front rim, toilet bowl, and finally went in. So I think that was a really fun shot. That was memorable. So
you talking about the ultimate tease with the shot?
Yeah.
Coach, your favorite moment, clutch moment?
I agree with John. Those are the biggest ones. And the shot against Ohio State in 2011 was a big one.
Brandon Knight, yeah.
Brandon Knight. That was a big one. I'm going to throw another one in, though, because I think it wasn't at the end. But you talk about huge shots when under a minute left. 1998, Scott Padgett hits the pick and pop 3 against Duke. If he doesn't make that shot, and being against Duke makes it great. If he doesn't hit that shot, then that's Terry said, you take down. That's the banner you take down if he doesn't hit that shot.
Yeah,
So it's
good
huge.
point.
But I was looking back over all those, and one that stuck in my mind, and I'll never forget it because it was the most awkward looking shot I ever saw, was when Nasser Muhammad hit just the runner, flat-footed, and never left the ground. His heels were on the ground when he let go of the ball. And
He didn't. That wasn't a shot.
Hold on,
To be honest,
wrong.
it wasn't
He
even a
really
shot.
Shoot that. What? Hold on, we
just
need to stop play. What happened? It goes in and they win it. Man, that's the one shot, just by looking at it, of any shot in Kentucky history, I'll never forget, just because it looks so nuts.
Yeah, they're good. Like it. Buzz, clutch shots.
Well, you had several. I'm going to go back. You go back to 70.
Give us a couple. You
78, 79, and you'd have to research me, but Dwight Anderson, the blur.
Oh,
He just exploded in like about the last 20 seconds of a Kentucky win at Kansas, which was very much his coming out party. I'd go with Paget. I think Cameron hit some big shots in one of those games as well.
Oh.
You had the Calipari's first year. They seemed to be riding that momentum, and I believe it was the Big Cuz tip-in down there at the SEC tournament against Mississippi State. You had a Cedric Jenkins tip-in Rupp against
we haven't
Louisville.
that
That was
name in a
huge
while.
game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So there have been some big ones, but Oweh, that was a huge shot.
Dave and John, I'll ask you guys this: what would be the biggest shot you remember from the Joe B era?
Oh,
Because that was just like a magic. To me, that's just like a magical.
Yeah, I think
Was this
one
it?
that comes to my mind is Kenny Walker and his shot against Auburn I think it was to win the SEC tournament.
I think this is it. Will Myatt on the chat. Jim Master against Louisville in the tournament to get the overtime. Kenny Walker shot to win the SEC tournament. Okay.
Yeah, that was the one in which he made Charles Barkley cry, I believe.
Yeah,
it was a
that's
line
right.
drive
That
shot
made the
that
bill.
hit the front of the
That's
rim
right.
and just kind
That's
of
right.
bounced
They played
in.
it down at Vandy.
And then the
Terrible.
picture was of Charles
thought it was
Barkley crying
Terrible.
afterwards.
He thought
That
it
was Kenny Walker, one of his multiple claims to
I think one of the
fame.
one of the bigger shots was two shots, and it was just normal stuff. When Macy hit those two free throws up in the regional at Dayton.
Oh, jeez. We're going down memory lane. I gotta come up with a show to take us back in time. A full show. Terry, did you give us your clutch moment? Your CBS shining
Tayshaun
moment?
over Florida, right? That back him down, that lefty hook in the lane.
That's a good call.
And it was great because it won the Florida game. And the Detroit Pistons actually used that action on their run to the 0-4 final with rookie Tayshaun Prince. You get your man on the block, go get a bucket. So that's my clutch
Tayshaun,
bucket.
Those threes
He
against
deserves
North
to be up in Rupp
Carolina.
Arena, but I'm not gonna go down that road.
Why
needs to
not?
be up there? Because we're going to end up with about 50 years of Kentucky basketball that won't be recognized in Rupp Arena. But that's neither here nor
we've
there.
got stuff to talk about in future shows. So, all right, cool. Real quick, guys. Tom Lunardi now has Kentucky as a 4 seed as of today.
Joe Lunardi.
Joe, I said Joe. Yeah, Joe. Sorry. You speaketh first, Dave. Give us fair foul. You buying, selling that 4 seed right now?
Which Dave?
Oh, Baker. Sorry.
I think they've earned it, but I mean, here's the situation you're in right now. This week they can play themselves into as high as, I believe, a 5 seed for the SEC tournament, and then they could play themselves down to as low as an 11 seed.
I know.
So this, I'm sure John will represent that this is just one of those normal announcer non-answers, but I mean, there's still a lot of stuff that can happen in the last week.
Yeah, tell us how you really feel.
I
do think that as a 4th seed nationally, yes, I agree. They have earned it. Resume-wise, they've earned every bit of that. But practically speaking, if they were to earn a 4th seed right now with Robinson out, they would be overseeded. and somebody in that region would benefit from having them as a 4th seed.
Okay. Well, you got a couple more games left. Coach, 4 seed right now, fair or foul?
You know, I tweeted it, I think, earlier today that if they lose to Missouri, and let's go to that. I think they'll beat LSU. Missouri's going to be tough out there. And then I don't think any of us think they're going to go SEC tournament, probably go 4 days and win SEC tournament. That's 12 losses. And a lot of times when you got 12 losses, your teams are they're holding their breath on Selection Sunday with 12 losses. It's really weird. But that tells you the quality of wins that they have.
Yep.
And I just wonder if you look at it, if a team with 12 losses, and I think John's right, if you look at where the momentum's at right now about being overseeded, but I just wonder if a team with 12 losses can get a 4 seed. That just sounds crazy to me. I mean, but
maybe because there's 13 teams possibly.
That tells you how competitive. You know, they asked Nate Oates. I was at the Alabama game in Tuscaloosa and went to the press conference, and Nate Oates broke Wimp Sanderson's record after only 6 years of beating top 25 teams at all time at Alabama. And they asked him about it, and he said, I've got to coach a lot more against top 25 teams than he did. The league's got so good now. So that's probably it. You know, I think that speaks volumes to the SEC, and it's just hard for me to process.
Dave O.
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, right now, I think 4 seed is quite an overseed. I can see right now, like everybody said, the momentum is probably carrying us in that 6 or 7 seed right now. I could easily see us if shit really hits the fan and stuff really starts going south. I can see that 8 or 9, and then the NCAA committee licking their chops and putting us up against Duke again. So I can see that, but as I've said over and over, I'm just going to finish enjoying this ride and just kind of cheer on and see.
I would submit to you that if there's any way the NCAA selection committee can do it, they'll put Kentucky up against St. John's.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the really early, like second round.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
mean.
But St. John's is what? Are they at 2 or 3 now?
Aren't they at 3rd?
I haven't looked.
I think they're 3.
I think they're at 3. And just keep in mind the humor of the committee. If there's a way to put St. John's against Louisville, in fairness, Louisville will be in the tournament. That'll happen too.
Yeah.
Terry, what you got? 4, 5? How you?
When has Kentucky ever been overseeded? If nothing else, in my experience, they've been underseeded. You know, 2016, they came here to Des Moines as a 4 seed. Texas A&M was the 3 seed. If Kentucky's not a 1 or 2 loss team as a 1 seed, they get underseeded. And that's been to the benefit of Kentucky, but to the non-benefit of the teams they've had to play, like a Wichita State, right? Like Ohio State in 2011. So I have yet to see Kentucky ever be overseeded. If someone can show me where that's happened, I'll be glad to take a look at it. But if Kentucky's not at the top, they get underseeded, and all that does is hurt everybody else. But it makes our run to the Final Four even sweeter.
Let me ask you all this. So let's say it goes to chalk. They beat LSU. They lose to Missouri. They win, I don't know, 1 game. I don't know where they would be, 1 game probably. Then they lose to Auburn. So they're 2-2 in the next 4. Where would that put? I think maybe 5 or 6. Wouldn't that what you guys would think? If they go 2-2 in the next 4?
A guy that worked at the committee for a long time told me one time to remember that it's not just what your team does, it's what everybody else does.
Right.
And the one time I think about that is when Kentucky ran into UConn out there in Houston. And UConn, I believe, had to win 6 games that year just to win the Big East tournament and get the automatic bid.
Right.
So there will be some teams out there like that.
Timing is everything.
North Carolina State last year.
Yeah.
That's a good take. Here's
Speaking
one.
of timing.
Well, we're wrapping it up. Peanut butter posse. Okay. Question for the panel. Does it bother you guys that BYU is better than they were last year? Oh, that's just striking the Coach Pope narrative for this season. Buzz, is Doc has alluded. You're the
Apologist.
Yes. What's your take? How would you answer that question? Or do you even care to answer that question?
No, I don't mind. I mean, I haven't seen what BYU's strength of schedule is. I love to watch them play. Had a great game the other night, but they have certainly succeeded at the level that they have become accustomed to in the last 10 years or so. And I'm not surprised that they're doing that. And, as Terry says, the proof in the pudding will come in the tournament.
There you go. Terry,
but they are fun to watch.
They are. Yeah. All right. We're wrapping it up. Thanks, guys, for doing this. Thanks for the people in the chat questions and takes and all that good stuff. Final shots for everyone. Doc, go.
Yeah, this little panel discussion today, especially between Terry and Dave, is kind of amazingly reminded me of maybe the Trump-Zelensky little exchange that we saw on the news lately. One big difference, though, I know that Dave and Terry will be able to meet in the handshake line afterwards, which brings me to my final shot. A little dust up in the handshake line in the Oklahoma game. Notice how I tied that together. A little dust up. There have been a lot of coaches who say that they want to do away with that. I think Ricky Pitino was one who said he didn't want to participate in the handshake line anymore. I think when you see the president of the United States and his demeanor, that stuff filters down to the rest of society. And big part of sports nowadays is sportsmanship. Handshake line is a great representation of sportsmanship. You can go at it full bore on the court, try to tear each other's hearts out. But when the game is over and the whistle blows, regardless of the score, you can come together and you can shake hands. That's a big part of why we enjoy sports. That's the way it should be. Be careful when you're yelling at other people. Always be willing to come back and shake hands afterwards.
Yeah. Buzz, stop yelling at people on this panel.
Well, so far, all of society's ills and basketball ills, John has put at the feet of Billy Gillispie and Donald Trump. I mean,
you got to figure it out.
If you want to talk about demeanor and everything, this guy was a comic, okay? And they have all these meetings about negotiating this $1 trillion deal. And all of a sudden, he comes over and flies over here from Ukraine and acted like it never happened, when we have just poured money after money into that deal over there, which really, wherever you guys live, whether it's Terry in Des Moines or Simpsonville, I don't have people coming up on the street and ask me, what do you think about this Ukraine thing? I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, it'll get figured out. That's the way politics is. People think that this is like the worst time we've ever lived. Excuse me, Revolutionary War. Excuse me, Civil War. Excuse me, 1968 in Chicago at the Democratic National Convention. We ain't seen stuff. I mean, sometimes people are just too sensitive. But along those lines, of course, this is the beginning of one of the most holy periods for the Christian faith. Ash Wednesday on Wednesday is the beginning of Lent. So I am encouraging all fans who have gone off the deep end to give up lunacy for Lent.
Lunacy. There. Okay. L for an L. We'll take it.
There you go.
Good take. Coach, what you got? Final shot, sir.
I'll shake anybody's hand on here if you give me 200 billion. I promise. So anyway,
so you do have a price.
I can be bought, man. I promise you, I can be. Hey, I got mouths to feed. My whole family's females. So
okay.
Terry knows. Terry knows what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
But my whole thing is speaking of, coming together and shaking hands and all that. I can't believe that John Cena hit Cody Rhodes with a low blow. Not only after they shook hands,
first ever heel turn
after they hugged.
No,
that's the biggest story.
I thought it was a great swerve.
I know where I live. They won't be talking about Trump Zelensky on the street, but they will be talking about John Cena and Cody Rhodes.
There you go. Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful.
And Cody Rhodes is just the shadow of the man that his dad was.
He's son of a plumber, right?
Somebody going to get a clubbering, if you will.
I have seen hard times.
Oh, you know what? If I detect any of you as pro wrestling fans, let me line something up once basketball season ends. We'll stay tuned.
I've asked you about your all your podcasts. Oh, you go, TB. I've asked.
I'm going to tell you something right now, brother. If you want to bring it, then you just bring it, brother. If you think you're going to take this strap from around my waist, then you let me
Cut that
know.
promo. Cut it.
Kevin Hale.
Back in the day when he first started, Randy Savage used to come up to our office every Friday morning and edit his own show. You'd hear these big feet coming up the steps. He'd go,
right.
"Hey, Dave, anybody using the edit bay?"
You're right. Kentucky Mike, you're right. He did. He was that like hip hop guy. Yeah, he was. Yeah, but then, once he. Yeah. Oh, wow. Heck, yeah, there you go. Oh, good God. We're tapping into something great. Dave-O, final shot real quick. No?
Yeah, Kevin, the feds really showed out on Sunday, huh? That was a great pay-per-view. No, seriously. So I always just go way opposite of what everybody else is talking about, and I apologize. But the TBT, just announced that Kentucky is another regional host. And I think that was a very fun tournament. Yeah. And I think that this year we need to not let little brother, fill out freaking Freedom Hall, and let's put 20,000 in freaking Rupp Arena for all the alums. I think that's super cool. So keep an eye on that tournament. It's really fun.
There you go. Basic thugonomics. TB, did you give a final shot? Who hasn't given?
You're going to take this belt off my waist? Think again, Kevin Hale. But I've got to give a shout out to my own Sarah Brown, who is playing well for Aurora University lacrosse. She's a team leader in ground balls and turnovers charged or turnovers created. And look, I scream a lot when it comes to Kentucky basketball. Believe it or not, I'm emotional.
Ice cream, like chocolate, vanilla, what?
Yeah, but I scream a lot. I do a lot. But when I'm watching the game and the commentator said, Sarah Brown scoops up the ball, hey, ain't nothing like it, man. So
that's you feel that buzz going through you, right?
I feel it. So I'm supporting my baby girl. She's living her dreams, man.
I love that. Good stuff.
I do too.
All right, guys. Round shots tonight. Didn't expect the banter, but I will take it every effing time. People in the chat, appreciate you for hanging out. People watching Twitter, all that, or X, whatever. Good stuff. We'll be back next Sunday as the women's will have wrapped up the SEC tournament, and then we'll be talking about what's what's going on with the men's NCAA or SEC tournament. Doc, Coach, Dave-O, TB, Buzz, thank you. Love you guys. Everyone, have a good week. Go Cats. Peace out.
Go Cats.
Later.